Blog Talk Radio.
Bienvenidos a WEXP 88.3, donde lo hacemos mejor. Soy Evelyn Bernal y este es mi programa Entre Mujeres.
Happy Thursday and welcome. This is your host of Between Women, Evelyn Bernal. We are mixing it up today with a English version of my show. Usually the Spanish segment is Entre Mujeres, which means basically the same thing as Between Women. So excited to be with you today. I've had some technical difficulties, so pardon my little leave of absence here, but it seems like we figured it out and we're back. Very, very hot topic today, and the reason I say that it's a hot topic is because I frequently get questions around this topic, and I get asked for consultation around this, especially from the female population, but also because obviously as a female, I've also experienced this very uncomfortable, icky feeling. So we're going to talk about jealousy, and specifically we're going to talk about how jealousy and intuition are sometimes confused, or we don't know how to tell the difference. So let's talk, let's explore this topic further. I did get some questions from girls who gave me a shout out and said, hey, this is what I want to know, or this is my biggest doubt about jealousy. So let's get right into our topic. What is jealousy? So a lot of us have the notion that jealousy is a feeling, but contrary to popular belief, jealousy is not a feeling. Actually, jealousy is a belief that we have about the other person. In this case, let's just assume it's your significant other. So jealousy is a belief about how they behave, our idea or perception of how they're behaving or the behaviors that they are engaging in. For example, I believe that my significant other is flirting with his coworkers. An example, right? That is a belief. Obviously, I was having actually this conversation with my fiance, and he said, how is jealousy a belief? Well, because it brings up so many negative emotions, and I agree. Jealousy does provoke negative feelings such as insecurity, doubt, low self-esteem, rage, etc. The whole range of emotions depending on where you are on the spectrum. That doesn't mean jealousy is a feeling, though. It is a belief about how our significant other is acting, and this belief creates all these uncomfortable feelings inside of us and sometimes it's difficult to kind of differentiate and separate. Is it me? Is it him? Is it me? Is it her? We don't know, and that's exactly why we want to talk about this today. So speaking of jealousy, we don't all have, but the majority of us have a different level of jealousy. So you might be like that one girl who's kind of laid back and you're just a little bit jealous from time to time. You might be the girl that's kind of in between. 50% of the time you're jealous, and then 50% of the time you really don't care. You don't, pay attention to those uncomfortable feelings. And what does it depend on? Why is it that some women are more jealous than others? Well, it depends on our level of security, and which is exactly where jealousy comes from. That is why there is women that are, 80% secure, so their jealousy level is kind of low. There's some that are 90% secure, and their jealousy level is kind of not even visible, non-existent. And, of course, there is women that are 100% secure, and jealousy is a rare feeling that they're going to experience. I've heard somewhere that we all experience jealousy. I believe that we all at one time or another experience kind of those thoughts about our significant other. However, I will tell you that the more insecure you are, the more jealous that you are. And so when we look at what the studies say about what the experts say about jealousy, they say that this is where jealousy comes from, okay? These are the two main sources of jealousy. One is it's a deep-seated feeling of inadequacy or shame, feeling like we are inferior. And other times, jealousy is caused by our conscious. See, that this is where my Mexican comes out. I was going to say not conscious. I think it's conscience. Jealousy comes from our conscience because some of us have actually been unfaithful to our partner. Sometimes we act kind of shady, and we do things that make us think, like, yeah, he's probably doing the same thing, or she's probably doing the same thing. My significant other is doing the same thing as me. And so you will find that these type of people are also extremely jealous because they're engaging in those kinds of behaviors and they feel like, oh, you're going to do it to them. And so I can hear some of us already being like, well, actually this topic can possibly create like some fights between couples. That is not my objective. But let's be real about it. How many of us are going to say, hey, like, I'm feeling jealous because I feel so little about myself at times. I feel so inadequate. For women, I know I've mentioned it before in some of my shows. For women, body image is the biggest source of self-esteem. And, obviously, like the society we live in, we are constantly bombarded by women who are photoshopped and photoshopped to absolute perfection. We're always comparing each other. We're bombarded with the media with these images of what like the ideal woman is, and we strive for it. And it's unrealistic. It's not real. It's not even, that person doesn't even look like them when they come out in the social media. However, it's a big thing for women. Body image is something that creates a whole bunch of insecurity, and sometimes that's where we kind of transform those feelings and we want to put it on our significant other. The reality is that when you're not happy with yourself, it's kind of difficult to believe that somebody's going to want to stay with you. There's always that inherent little voice saying, oh, it's not conscious. We don't do it purposely. We're not even thinking about it, but our own insecurities project on others, and sometimes this is why we are jealous. And so, if we were to measure it, and again, to be redundant, we were to measure it, the more insecure you are, probably the more jealous that you are. And I've seen women, speaking about women because our show ends between women, not because I'm singling us out. However, I have seen women on different sides of the spectrum here. I have seen women that are extremely pathologically jealous, which means that like it impairs their functioning. They are constantly harassing their partners because in their heart of hearts, they actually truly believe that this person is behaving in an inappropriate manner. And sometimes there is no grounds for the feelings that they're having. And of course, if you're at this level where you are pathologically jealous, you are not going to admit that you feel so little about yourself that you inherently believe that this person would not want to stay with you, and that the only way to have this person stay with you is to control them, is to monitor them, is to have these outbursts and to constantly be making sure that this person is not going to cheat on you, which actually is an illusion because we all understand, girls, that when a man does not want to be kept, when our significant other does not want to be kept, there is no force of nature in this world that will make them stay, in spite of whatever we do. And so that's one reason. Insecurity is one of the reasons. The other one is that there's actually people that have a bad conscience. They've acted shady. They have their little action on the side. They do things that are not appropriate, and so they put their feelings on their significant other, and they feel like, oh, this person is going to do the same thing. And so they're always accusing and believing that this person is doing that, when in reality it's them. That's two of the main sources for jealousy. Now, we're going to talk more about intuition or perception as the show progresses. So if you have any questions, always feel free to hit us up on Facebook. I am under Evelyn Bernal Life Coach. Send me an inbox. Send me love, a shout out. Sometimes these topics get kind of heavy, but push through. This is really good information. Being aware is the best weapon against negative feelings. So let's talk about. I did tell you that jealousy comes from insecurity. And insecurity comes basically from feeling inferior or feeling less than we are. And so if I, inside of me, feel that I'm inferior or less, then I don't have any reason to believe that my couple is going to want to stay. And so in order for my significant other not to leave, then I have to babysit. I have to take care of him or her. And how do I protect this person from leaving me? Well, I am jealous. We think that being jealous is going to prevent them from leaving us. And the other reason is why, like I said, this talk is all about being real. We're talking amongst women here. The reality is that sometimes we are absolutely terrified of being alone, especially if you are a person that's pathologically jealous. We fear, there's some of us that fear abandonment, we are totally terrified. We get panicked just thinking that this person might leave, and so we resort to, this is not an interpersonal skill. Jealousy and control, pathological jealousy is a reaction, and so we react by trying to protect our supply to make sure that this person is not going to leave us. And so what happens, a lot of us make the mistake of we want to deal with our insecurity controlling our significant other. The ironic thing about that is when we start fighting and we start trying to control our significant other because of our jealous beliefs, instead of making them get closer to us, we're actually pushing them away. We are doing things that are contrary to what we want to achieve. But I want to tell you something, girl. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your significant other does. There's stuff inside of us that, if you're at that level, or if you're a person that's constantly jealous and you constantly feel like you need to control your significant other to make sure that, he or she doesn't leave, then it's not on him or her. It's inside of you. There's some interpersonal stuff going on inside that you still need to take care of. And so, instead of focusing on, how am I going to get this man under control, or how am I going to get my significant other under control, instead of focusing on that, which is crazy making because, we can't change anybody. Instead of doing that, then we need to ask ourselves, why do I feel the need to control this person in order to stay with me? Why? What if I didn't control my significant other? Would they still stay? Or why do I remain in a relationship where I feel like I have to continually babysit this person? Why? Ask yourself, make that question. Instead of going outward with your uncomfortable beliefs and feelings, go inward and ask yourself, why do I put up with this? What compels me to try to control this person because of my jealous beliefs? Because sometimes I can't control my jealous beliefs. So the thing is that we feel like jealousy, the jealous behavior gives us some type of control, when in reality, I know this is not going to help, but in reality, it's just an illusion, because unless you have your couple in your house, kidnapped, inside the house, lock and key, then you can't really control that other person. Even if you had him under lock and key, you still can't control his thoughts. It's it doesn't. Control is an illusion. That control that individuals that are extremely jealous try to exercise over the person, it doesn't work. It's just an illusion, because at the end of the day, we're all our own person, and we have to go out into the world, and they have to make their own decisions. And obviously, we want to be with a person that makes a choice to be with us, even if we are not hovering over them. So let's talk about intuition. So yeah, I got kind of They're talking about jealousy because I know, like, I can hear a lot of people saying, well, you don't understand. It's because you don't know this person, blah, 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 blah. But let's be accountable, girls. At the end of the day, this is the person that we chose. And if this person has already wronged you over and over again, then I'm sorry, but it's not on the person. It's on us. That's why we need to start questioning our own motivations and our own intentions. What keeps me here? Well, sometimes we're going to say, well, the reality is that I feel like I'm not going to find anybody to love me. See, we start getting to the reality of the situation, and it changes. It changes our perception. So some of us believe in intuition, and they say that women have a sixth sense. I was always a big believer of the sixth sense. I felt like it gives you some inherent, like, pride and power to say, oh, like, women have a sixth sense or moms have a sixth sense. One of my professors, who is like an expert, his career is around doing research, right, and trying to find truth in things people say. One thing he always says is, not everything you believe is true. And then regarding intuition, he said he doesn't believe in intuition. He doesn't believe that intuition exists. He says when we are having, like, a preconceived feeling, it's because we are perceiving something is out of place. But that's what he says. And so what I'm going to add to this, sometimes we feel that something is off, but we don't know how to interpret it. So how do you tell your couple, you know what, I'm kind of irked with you because I am feeling like I'm perceiving that something is off. This is where the jealous beliefs, intuition, perception, whatever, gets confusing, because how many times is somebody actually going to tell you, oh, well, you know what, your perception is right, I'm being shady. It's, maybe like 2% of the times. Obviously, I'm generalizing. I have no data to support that, but just making an assumption on anecdotal information, I'm thinking that it's very rare that a person is going to come out and say, you know what, whatever you're perceiving is right. I've been shady. I've been acting inappropriately. No, they're not going to tell us, and sometimes we're not going to say it either. If you ask them, they're going to be like, they're not going to be like, you're right. They're going to be like, yeah, girl, you tripping, or girl, you're crazy. They're not going to tell us because they might not be adequate, the most adequate in communicating, or honesty, which is a skill. So what happens? We persist in picking fights over a feeling because we want to justify that it's our intuition. But these are our options at this point. Our options are, we have two options. We have, when we start to perceive that something is out of place, again, assuming that intuition does not exist, and assuming that, in fact, what we are picking up is that there's been changes, and, obviously we're going to perceive them even though we don't know what they are. Our options are, we can fight with our couple until, like, we are blue in the face, or we could start exploring our feelings. Because at the end of the day, girl, fighting over a jealous belief is only we're going to go through the same cycle. And then what happens when we fight about it? Then we give the person a reason to act in a inappropriate manner, because then they can use us and be like, oh, no, like, it's not me. I don't have any appropriate behaviors because she's crazy, right? Because going the route of extreme jealousy and trying to control this person or constantly try to figure out what's going on, it only takes us down a path like it achieves the opposite of what you're trying to achieve. So, can you hear me stutter there? Sorry. I got warmed up and excited. I love giving information. Girls, I firmly believe that knowledge is power. And so instead of intuition, let's be perceptive and honest with ourselves. When we are starting to perceive the deterioration of our relationship, when we are starting to feel like things are off, instead of jumping to like a jealous conclusion, let's go inward and ask ourselves, where is this coming from? Why am I feeling this way? What's going on in my life this week that, I'm feeling like a little extra insecure? The other thing that I want you to ask yourself is, if this person, truly does give you a reason to be jealous, ask yourself, what motivates me to allow this behavior? Because I will agree, there are times where women have the right, they're justified to have jealous beliefs because maybe their partner has a history, maybe with them, maybe with others. And so obviously it's not something that makes us feel secure about the relationship. But there comes a point in time when blaming is not really effective. Let's get down to the point. Tell me, what is it about yourself that keeps you tied to this type of relationship? Because asking yourself that kind of question gives you more power to change the situation than constantly wanting to elicit some information from someone that possibly has zero skills for being honest or upfront, because that takes interpersonal skills. On some occasions, like this perception that we have, this insecurity that we have in our relationships is because the communication isn't adequate. And so there's no flow of appropriate communication between us and our couple, because let's face it, sometimes our significant others, they don't want to tell us things. I'm sorry. We're live on the radio. They don't want to tell us anything because they know how we're going to react. They know that we're going to get mad, and so they're like, it's kind of scary. So they omit information because they don't want to make us upset, because we are not the most approachable, right? So they are omitting information, or sometimes we're omitting information. And so at some level, obviously, if you interact with a person, whoever it is, on a personal level, you are going to perceive that you're not going to perceive there's lack of information, there's lack of communication, and that's why I'm feeling this way. No, you're going to feel like something is different, like something isn't making sense, something isn't adding up. And so because the other person isn't communicating openly with you, what are you going to do? You're going to assume, and when we assume, how do we assume? We assume negatively. But you see the difference? Instead of actually trying to get to, try to shake this person into telling us what's going on, we're starting to evaluate the situation and say maybe it's not that this person is being unfaithful. Maybe it's not that this person is shady. Maybe it's just that we are not communicating, and this is creating a whole bunch of insecurity between us. But look at the difference. We are pathologically jealous. There is a pursuit to control the other person. But the woman, the female, that utilizes their logic, their interpersonal skills to look at the situation, starts asking different types of questions. And instead of trying to control the person, they start looking inward and saying, okay, what's going on? You know what they say? They say that when you're always angry in a relationship is because somebody's needs are not being met. And I actually read this. I didn't read it on Google. I read this from one of the programs that I utilize to treat women that have trauma. It's a thermometer. Sometimes our intuition is telling us something is off in the relationship. We don't know how to interpret it. We don't look for it. We don't ask the right questions. And so we immediately jump to being jealous and being reactive, and we all know how that works. You know how well that works. And so one of the questions that they asked me was, if I'm feeling insecure in a relationship, is it my fault or is it my significant other's fault because they don't make me feel secure? You know, obviously, in a nutshell, security, like the sense of self-esteem is an internal state, right? However, there is relationships that kind of trigger our insecurity that was already there because there's aspects of the relationship that are not healthy. And so when that is the case, when you are naturally a jealous person, we feel that those feelings of insecurity are because our significant other is acting inappropriately with somebody else. However, it's not always that they're, being shady, cheating, or going out with somebody else. Sometimes it's because there's aspects of the relationship that are not healthy, that are provoking the insecurity. Like, remember, the lack of communication, or, how many of us talk with our couple about, have we actually talked about being friends with the opposite sex, or even with the same sex? Like, have you talked about that and said, you know what, no, I don't feel comfortable with you having friends that are girls, or it's okay if you have friends that are girls, but I think keep it respectful. We don't talk about those things because very few people are going to admit, and they're going to say, you know what, yeah, I want to be friends with the opposite sex, or I do have a friend, right? And so we hide things that are not necessarily bad, but it's creating insecurity within the relationship. And the lack of dialogue, unfortunately, is what creates a lot of insecurity, because we are thinking that, oh, this is something bad, they're being unfaithful, when in reality is there's aspects of the relationship that are unhealthy that we're not exploring. And so I just want to say that, perception or intuition, whatever you want to call it, can help us to make changes in our behavior. That's the difference. Perception lets you evaluate the situation and say, maybe this is not such a healthy relationship for me, or maybe these are areas where our relationship isn't healthy yet and we need to work on it. And jealousy makes us want to control the other person through our tantrums. And so perception might help you to get to the root of your insecurity. Is it really the relationship provoking it, or is there something inside of you that's still kind of unhealthy and you haven't addressed? And so, wow, that was a lot of information. But you know what? Thank you for tuning in. I'm very happy to finally be able to talk about jealousy or intuition. Again, my name is Evelyn Bernal, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Evelyn Bernal Life Coach. I appreciate you tuning in today. If you have any questions, like I said, shoot me a message. If you have any topics that you feel like you want to talk about between women, then I will gladly address those. It's been a pleasure talking to you today, and I hope you guys have a great weekend. And I will see you next week at the same time. Thank you. Bye-bye.